Well, greetings, everyone. My name is Father Peter Fink. I am a retreat director at Ignatius House. And today we begin a spiritual journey. It is the season of Lent, 40 days to prepare us once again to celebrate Easter, when Jesus was raised from the dead. We begin the journey with ashes, which are an invitation for us to remember our own mortality, using one of the phrases the Church uses, or the other, to turn away from sin and believe in the gospel, believe in Jesus, renew our faith. The popular tradition to see Lent as a time of purification, a time for personal penance, things to give up or doing good things we had too long neglected. I remember my mother, who once stopped smoking on Ash Wednesday and stayed that way for the entire season, until on Holy Saturday she opened a new pack to celebrate Easter. Well, of course, in our day, things would be quite different. The penitential focus of Lent has a long history, beginning centuries ago, when another aspect of those 40 days, perhaps more important one, had faded. That was the loss of the baptismal focus, when Easter was a time for baptism and baptism renewal, something which has been restored in our day through the reforms of Vatican II. Understanding Lent in light of Christian initiation transforms what Lent is about. The focus is not on Lent preparing us for Easter, but on Easter, determining the time to prepare for it. Easter shapes the days leading up to it and the days that follow it. Neither Lent nor the time after Easter makes any sense apart from the resurrection of Jesus, which alone shapes them both. I remember giving a talk to a group in Boston on the 50 days that follow Easter. It was an absolutely splendid talk, but everybody hated it. Half the crowd were catechists. There were people training people, the catechumens, training them for baptism. And they felt I was bypassing them in my talk, which I wasn't, but... And the other half were charismatic folk who thought that Pentecost was the major feast, and I simply had reduced it to the 50th day of Easter. So everybody hated it, but it was a good talk. I also remember sending an email to a friend of mine just around Ash Wednesday, and I had this statement, enjoy Lent. Well, she wrote back and said, I'm Irish. I have never seen enjoy and Lent in the same sentence. Well, I reminded her of the first preface for Lent, where it said, each year you give us this joyful season. That's an earlier translation. Unfortunately, in the current translation, it's a bit obscured. But it is a joyful season. And at any rate, it's to say that as we enter Lent, the focus on the penitential dimension that we're used to is both inadequate and perhaps misleading. The focus is not on Ash Wednesday setting us on a journey, a penitential journey toward Easter, but on Easter, telling us what these 40 days are about and what the 50 days after Easter are about as well. The centerpiece of the Easter season liturgically is Holy Week, Palm Sunday to Easter, with a special focus on the Triduum, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and the Easter Vigil. On Holy Thursday, we celebrate our communion with Jesus and with each other, at the Eucharist and in our service to each other. On Good Friday, we stand humbly with Jesus as he endures his passion and as he fulfills his mission of incarnation with that marvelous phrase, "Into your hands I commend my spirit." And at the Easter Vigil, we celebrate how the world was changed by Jesus and by his resurrection. Easter celebrates not only the resurrection of Jesus, but all that Jesus has done and continues to do for the world, for the church, for ourselves, because we have become adopted children of God. So we begin this journey with ashes. Years ago I formulated a title of a book that I never wrote, which was entitled Ashes to Fire. And, ashes speaks of darkness. It was a symbol of the sinfulness that keeps turning us away from God. And the waters of baptism, by uniting us to Jesus, continue to cleanse us from that darkness and make us his friends and companions. And the fire, which is the Spirit at Pentecost, transforms us into a people who continue in our world the mission which Jesus himself established in his. I am a companion of Jesus, and I need always to grow in friendship with him. And I am a believer in his mission. And I need always to grow in communion with my sisters and brothers around me as we fulfill that mission. There are many ways to imagine the meaning of the ashes imposed on us, but always remember the preface of Lent. Each year you give us this joyful season, when we prepare to celebrate the Paschal mystery with mind and heart renewed. And the prayer goes on. You give us a spirit of loving reverence for you, our Father, and of willing service to our neighbor. As we recall the great events that gave us new life in Christ, you bring the image of your Son to perfection in us. Well, Lent is toward that renewal, and the ashes are but the beginning of a journey. It is like the sign of the phoenix. When the phoenix is tired and worn, it sets itself ablaze, and from the ashes, the phoenix is born again. Well, Lent is a joyful season for the worn, for the weary, for all of us. It starts with the imposition of ashes, but from the ashes, new life is born in ourselves, in our church, in our world.